Reppin' Philly ain't a choice, it's a way of life. PhillyGoat.com is your one stop shop for Philly pride. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off. Look fresh, stay Philly, Philly Goat. Go Birds. Everyone, welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for December 11th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Big Eagles game day weekend, Thursday, or whatever that means. But let's get right into the Eagles. They are staying positive. Jordan Davis, I love. They had a good interview with him yesterday at his locker. Talked about how he believes in the offense. He's going out there, even if they're annoyed by him, he's going out there with the belief and everything like that. So I think from a mindset perspective, this team's in a good spot, all things considered. The positivity bunny is gone. Oh, well. It was fun while it lasted. But, I mean, this has to be the week they get it right. If they cannot have a bounce back, get right spot this week, I think we all know it's going to be one and done in the playoffs if they even make it there. But it seems as though the mindset is right. Jalen said, you know what, he's not dwelling on it. He's got to be better, and he will be better. And I think of all quarterbacks in the NFL, the one you want that is going to bounce back from something like this, that has the mental makeup and can bounce back from something like that, is Jalen Hurts. Always one game at a time, next play at a time, keep the main thing, move on. And truthfully, I think there's no reason to dwell on it, because that's when you get the negativity, just like positivity breeds. So the more you dwell on it and say, oh, woe is me, this, that, and the other, that's when you're going to start snowballing. And I think that's what happened in 23. So what they need to do is flush it, move on, have a guy like Jordan Davis sitting there and be in your corner and stay positive. But I'm confident, and I like the fact that it's Jalen Hurts. I do think there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league that wouldn't be able to bounce back from that. We saw it throughout the Carson Wentz era here, specifically at the end when he was playing bad and just could not handle it. But I think Jalen has a different sort of mentality, which is good. When Nick Sirianni was asked about the possibility of benching him, he said it's ridiculous. I do agree. I mentioned that yesterday. I think Jalen Hurts gives you the best shot to win. And even more so, I think it's ridiculous to even have this right now, have this conversation. Is he struggling? Sure. But Tanner McKee is not the answer. And if it was just Jalen and everybody else was playing great, I could see it. But this is a whole unit issue for the Eagles offense, not a Jalen Hurts issue. So while, yes, it was not his best game, worst game as a pro, he needs to be better. It's not 100% on him, because at the end of the day, one of those drops from AJ, specifically the one in the end zone, or truthfully any of the other ones, the Eagles win that game. A missed field goal by Jake Elliott indoors, 48 yards. Eagles win that game. So it's one of those things like, all right, Jalen did not play well, but neither did anybody else. So the calls for benching, I think, are a little bit ridiculous and out of line and essentially clickbait. But that's a whole nother story for another time. Lots of drama going on in Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio right now, between some old friends and midday host on both of the radio stations. But it's ridiculous to even suggest that you bench him or he has a short leash. There also may be some snow in the forecast. I kind of heard it in passing. Still a little early. Might have snow heading down to the game. Might be snowing slightly during the game. Nothing major like the Snow Bowl or the playoff game against the Rams last year. But snow in the forecast nonetheless always makes it fun when there's snow in the stadium. Of course, the Brotherly Birds breakdown is out. Posted it, dropped overnight last night. So go check that out. Kyle and I talk a lot about the Jalen Hurts situation. We talk about some of the struggles that the team has had. Look at the defense, and then start looking ahead to the Raiders. We give our picks, 3 keys, as well as our fantasy stars. So go check that out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. All right, so Kyle Schwarber spoke to the media yesterday. Didn't really say a lot, but my big takeaway is essentially this is where he always wanted to be. So it was basically incumbent upon the Phillies to make sure they got it done. Probably, I didn't hear the whole interview yet, but it seemed as though he wanted to be here. He loves that he made such an impact on the team as well as the fans. So he's looking forward to the next 5 years. He did mention that he is respecting JT's process, but also at the same time recruiting him to come back. And honestly, I think JT's coming back. I think that was a foregone conclusion at the end of last year, unless some team came in and offered him a ridiculous amount. He was coming back. And truthfully, the teams that probably would offer him a ridiculous amount are not going to be contending teams. But Kyle Schwarber on the recruitment trail for JT. I'll hopefully be able to find the full interview. I saw, shout out to my boy John Foley, who was posting clips from the Zoom call, but I need to find the whole, see if I can get my hands on the whole thing and watch that. But it's a good dude. Like I said, I mean, I think this is a good, like I said yesterday, this is a good move for the Phillies from a clubhouse perspective, from an on-field perspective. Is the contract a little bit longer than what I'd like? Yeah, but sometimes you got to overpay for what you really need. And we'll see what even happens with the collective bargaining agreement and everything as we get close to that. But a good move for the Phils. Good to see Kyle talk. And congratulations to him and his wife, who are expecting their daughter any day now, as he did mention that. And ironically enough, on the day he signed his last contract with the Phillies, initial contract, I should say, his wife went into labor. So good timing there with the babies and contracts and the Phillies for Kyle Schwarber. And then, of course, you hate to see this, but Mets fans are in full meltdown mode right now as Pete Alonso left to sign with the Orioles. So that's 2 big guys gone in 2 days. I think they kind of expected Alonso to be gone. Not so sure they expected Diaz to be gone, but you hate to see it for Mets fans, but glad it's not us. Here we go. All right, Flyers back in action tonight down at the X against the Vegas Golden Knights. This will be a good test for this young team. Actually kind of looking forward to this game tonight. Hopefully they can stay on the winning track. But some quick housekeeping. Be sure to follow me on social media at Philly Jimbo on all platforms. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. Don't forget about the Brotherly Birds breakdown. Our analytics are slowly trending up, which is good. But let's make a good push here at the end of the year. 2 more days left to donate to the 3rd annual Gifted Food Drive, benefiting the Mattie N Dixon Community Cupboard. Go to my social media, QR code's there, and just scan it, and any little bit helps. I'll be going over tomorrow to drop off donations, but looking forward to that. And if you are participating in the reverse advent calendar, today's item is chunky progressive soups, the soups that eat like a meal. Free plug there, Campbell's Chunky Soup. But that is today's reverse advent calendar of the day. And our random act of kindness today is a good day, this weekend possibly. Donate old clothes, old toys to charity as you're gearing up and getting ready for Santa to come and all the new stuff that's going to come. Go through your old stuff, whatever is salvageable and able to be used, donate. Same way with your clothes. I have to get into my closet here and figure out what I'm doing as far as my weight loss journey, but anything helps, and this is a good time to do it. Kind of purge out your old stuff, prepare for the new stuff, and help others in need in the process. Whether you're coaching Little League, crushing your fantasy league, or just rolling up to a bachelor party like a Philly legend, Latwin custom hype chains bring the energy. Fully customizable, totally unforgettable, and guaranteed to turn you into the MVP of the moment. Great for teams, groomsmen, or anyone who wants to show off with some serious swagger. Go to Lotwin.com, use the promo code TCCPOD, and get 10% off your own custom hype chain. Lotwin, let's get hyped together. All right, December 11th. First, let's go back to 1977. And on this day in 1977, the Flyers beat the Cleveland Barons. 11-1 at the Spectrum. Tom Blayden had himself a ridiculous day. The defenseman had 4 goals, 4 assists, setting the Flyers record for total points in a game, which still stands today. Still shares the NHL record with Paul Coffey for points by a defenseman, and his plus 10 in this game still is tops all time in an NHL game. So Tom Blayden had himself a day. That 77-78 season, he was an all-star. Now, he scored 8 points in this game against Cleveland, but only had 35 points the entire season. So for you math people out there, 23% of his points came in this game. So kudos to Tom Blayden, who set and still holds the Flyers record for most points in a game with 8, tied with Paul Coffey for the defenseman all-time points in a game with 8. His plus 10 is still tops in NHL history, and he had himself a day. Now, you might be wondering, I do this all the time when certain teams come up. The Cleveland Barons, how do they connect to the current NHL? Well, Cleveland, originally, they were the Oakland Golden Seals. They were one of the next 6 expansion when the Flyers, Penguins, and teams like that came in. They changed their name. They were Oakland, they were California, they were Seals, they were Golden Seals. But they moved to Cleveland, and after a couple seasons, they merged with the Minnesota North Stars, who are now in Dallas. So the Cleveland Barons are partly the Minnesota North Stars. So there is your NHL history lesson for the day as well. Fast forward all the way to 2022, the Eagles went into MetLife Stadium and left after a methodical and very businesslike beatdown of the Giants, 48-21. Jalen Hurts threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 1. Miles Sanders had 144 yards and 2 touchdowns. Devontae and AJ both caught touchdown passes. Of course, didn't have a Giants game back then without Boston Scott scoring a touchdown. The defense had 7 sacks, 3 by Brandon Graham, my boy BG, as the Eagles clinched the playoff spot as they moved to 12-1. They essentially had a 2-game lead at that point over everyone in the NFC. So it was the Eagles going up to the Meadowlands and just methodically beating down the Giants 48-22 as they clinch a playoff spot for the 2022 season. Later that night in South Philly, the Sixers played the Hornets. They won 131-113. Joel Embiid shot 20 for 32, had 12 rebounds en route to 53 points. It was his second 50-point game that season, really in less than a month. He would add another one in April. Joe was just good. James Harden was on this team. He had 19 and an astounding 16 assists in this game. Future Sixer Kelly Oubre was playing for the Hornets and scored 29 for them to lead the way. But Sixers beat the Hornets 131-113. Joe goes for 53. James Harden has 16 assists, and we were feeling pretty good about this Sixers team. But we all know how that ended. And then 1 year later, in 2023, Sixers played another bottom feeder, came out with another big victory, another big game for Joe, as he had 34 on, 14 for 20 shooting, had 11 rebounds, 6 assists. Tyrese Maxey had 24 points, 5 for 9 on 3-point shooting. Just a back-to-back years, Sixers play bottom feeders and are able to come out with the win. Big games by Joe. Kind of makes you long for that time period and time frame. But will we see a return of that? Be nice. It would be nice. But that does lead to today's trivia question. We talked about the big games from Joel Embiid. Which Sixers have scored 60 points or more in a game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Keyword there, Philadelphia 76ers. We're not going back to the Syracuse Nationals. All right, and it is Thursday. Finally, Throwback Thursday, brought to you by the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network. Go to clashingconferences.com to see how you can join and become a member of the network. Everything they have to offer. We're proud members here at This Day in Philly Sports History. Obviously, with the Brotherly Birds breakdown, Kyle is very heavily involved with the Clashing Conferences. It's a good time. Lots of good sports talk. Fans from all over the country. So we're looking for you as well. So go to clashingconferences.com. All right, yesterday we talked about the 30th anniversary of 4th and 1. And one of the stars on that 1995 Eagles team was Andy Harmon. And in that game, he had 5 tackles and a half a sack. But that 95 season was Andy Harmon's best season with the Eagles. He was second-team All-Pro, had 11 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. But Andy was definitely a fan favorite, one of my favorite players, and he was a 6th-round pick out of Kent State. Played 7 years for the Birds, amassed 39 and a half sacks, 6 fumble recoveries, and an interception. But more amazingly, if you break down a small stretch from 92 to 95, he had 39 sacks. That's an impressive span of sacks over a short amount of time. Knee injuries, though, started to slow down his career and forced him to retire. Those 39 and a half sacks, by the way, for Andy, are second all-time on the Eagles list for a defensive tackle behind Fletcher Cox. Little known fact about Andy Harmon, he was on that 91 Eagles defense, which I talk about all the time. Greatest defense, hands down. Yes, they didn't win, but I'll put them up against the 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens, the Steel Curtain, any of them. That, for me, my money, that is the best defense ever. Andy Harmon was a member of that team. Played in all 16 games. Didn't get a ton of snaps because of just how dominant the offensive line or the defensive line was for those Eagles team, but I always forget that he was on that team. So for Throwback Thursday, we're celebrating and shouting out you, Andy Harmon, second in career sacks for a defensive tackle for the Eagles behind Fletcher Cox. 1995 had his best season, second team All-Pro, and played in the infamous 4th and 1 game. Don't forget about the trivia question. Which players have scored 60 or more points for the Philadelphia 76ers? Hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Get that anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. And I almost forgot yesterday's trivia answer. We talked about Tommy McDonald setting the Eagles' all-time single-game receiving record in 1961. And I asked who are number 2 and 3 on that list. Number 2 is Kevin Curtis, who went for 221 in 2007 in the old Frankfurt Yellow Jacket jersey throwback game. And Deshaun Jackson went for 210 in 2010. So everybody got Kevin Curtis. And then shout out to my boy Lewis, who was able to get D-Jack, who, congratulations on, I believe he won HBCU Coach of the Year this year. On this day in 2003, Sixers beat down the Wizards 146-101. Joe goes for 34. Tyrese Maxey adds 24. A year before, in 2022, Sixers beat the Hornets 131-113. Joe goes for 53. James Harden with 16 assists. And then earlier in the day, Eagles go up to MetLife Stadium, beat down the Giants 48-22. Jalen had a good day. Miles Sanders had a good day. And, of course, BG had a good day as well. And then in 1977, Tom Blandon had himself a day, setting the Flyers record for points in a game with 8, 4 goals, 4 assists, as the Flyers beat the Cleveland Barons 11-1. Please, if you still can, donate to the Gift and Food Drive. Still time. And remember, if you're doing the reverse advent calendar, Chunky and Progressive Soups are the item of the day. And donate those old clothes and toys. You're not using them anyway. You got to make room for what Santa is bringing in. Brotherly Birds Breakdown is out, so be sure to go check that out during your workday today. We'll have more on the Eagles. We'll preview what's coming up for the weekend. And, of course, tomorrow is Friday. Feel Good Friday. We spend Feel Good Fridays with AI, so stay tuned for that tomorrow. But this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for December 11th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.